Something is very wrong with the way this Kendrick Lamar situation is being framed right now, and I need you to sit with that for a second before we go any further. Because the entire conversation that has been happening online this week is being run on a script that somebody else wrote for you. Kendrick Lamar has not officially announced anything. He has not tweeted a release date. He has not sat down and said the album is coming. And yet somehow, in the last 72 hours, the internet has convinced itself that a boxing-themed Kendrick Lamar album is dropping soon, Drake fans are already crashing out about it in real time, and a brand new narrative is being pushed that the man who just rapped the highest-grossing rap tour in history is somehow, get this, ducking interviews. Ducking interviews. And the reason this is happening is not the reason you think. It is not that fans are excited. It is not that a random tweet went viral. There is a coordinated pattern happening right now between three specific things: a leaked hand rap at the Grammys, a DJ Dahi feature that just got confirmed, and a media clip designed to reframe Kendrick as absent from the culture. And when you connect those three dots the way I am about to connect them for you, you are going to realize that this entire week has been a manufactured moment. A pressure test, and the person being tested is not who you think it is. When we get to the part where I break down what the DJ Dahi feature actually confirms about Kendrick's release timeline, and I promise you we are getting there, you are going to understand why the people yelling loudest about him ducking interviews are the exact people who cannot afford for him to drop. Because if he drops, their entire 2-year rehab campaign collapses in a single weekend. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. So let me set the whole board for you, because if you are just tuning in, you might be watching this thinking, okay, another Kendrick versus Drake conversation. We have been here before. What is new? And I understand that instinct, I really do. But this week is not the same as any of the previous weeks in this cycle, and I need to explain exactly why. Kendrick Lamar in 2025 and going into 2026 is not the Kendrick Lamar from before the beef. He is not even the Kendrick Lamar from during the beef. This is a completely different version of this artist, one who just came off a grand national tour that grossed $358.7 million, one who broke his own record for the highest-grossing hip-hop tour of all time, surpassing Drake's It's All a Blur tour, and one whose Seattle stop alone at Lumen Field pulled $15.373 million in a single night. That is not a rapper on a comeback. That is a rapper operating at the ceiling of what this genre allows. Now, on the other side, you have Drake, who returned this year with not one, not two, but 3 separate album drops: Iceman, Habiti, and Maid of Honor. And if you actually sit down and listen to Iceman the way Billboard broke it down, a huge chunk of that album is still directly or indirectly referencing Kendrick, with tracks like Make Them Pay and Make Them Know cited by multiple outlets as containing pointed references to the 2024 beef. So keep that context in your head. One guy took a break, ran the biggest tour the genre has ever seen, and stayed silent. The other guy dropped 3 albums in one weekend and still could not stop talking about the person who beat him. Those are not two equivalent positions. Those are two completely different realities. And then this week, on top of all of that, DJ Dahi, the producer behind Money Trees and one of the most respected beat makers in the game, announces his album Black Boy Alternative. And there it is, track 3, How to Pray, featuring Kendrick Lamar and Amber Mark, releasing August 28th. That is a confirmed feature. That is not a rumor. That is a real, dated, publicly announced Kendrick verse hitting streaming. And that single confirmation is the domino that set off everything you are watching happen right now. Because the moment people realized Kendrick is still recording, still collaborating, still building, the boxing rumor caught fire, the hand rap footage from the 2026 Grammys started recirculating, and suddenly a certain group of fans could not handle any of it. The stakes are not just about who is dropping when. The stakes are about which version of hip-hop wins the next 12 months. So the question I want you sitting with is this: what has to be true about a person's confidence in their own artist for a confirmed feature and a hand rap to make them lose their entire mind? Let me walk you through the surface layer of what has actually happened this week, because this is where you can see the manufactured panic in real time. The first piece of evidence, and the one that started the whole cascade, is a tweet. One tweet, that's all it took. The tweet reads, and I'm quoting directly, "Kendrick Lamar is dropping soon. Project is boxing themed." That's it. No album title, no date, no track list, no source cited, just a claim. And within hours of that tweet going up, entire timelines are melting down. Now let's be adults about this. That tweet on its own is not evidence of anything. It could be true, it could be nonsense, but watch what the tweet did. It gave the Drake fan base a target to shoot at, and they took the shot immediately. And in taking the shot, they exposed the exact thing they've been trying to hide for the last 12 months, which is that they cannot handle Kendrick's name in the atmosphere for more than 48 hours without unraveling. The second piece of surface evidence is the hand wrap, and this is where it gets specific, and this is where the just a tweet argument falls apart. At the 2026 Grammys, Kendrick Lamar showed up wearing a full boxing-style gauze wrap on his hand. This is documented. XXL covered it, Complex covered it. Hot New Hip Hop ran a full piece titled "Kendrick Lamar's Grammys Look Sparks Theories About New Music." Dave Free, his creative director and one of the co-founders of PG Lang, then posted a close-up of the hand wrap on his Instagram. Now think about that. The creative director of Kendrick's entire visual world zooms in on the hand wrap and posts it. That is not accidental. That is not a fashion choice. That is signaling. And these are the same people who during the Damn rollout, the Good Kid Mad City rollout, the To Pimp a Butterfly rollout, and the GNX rollout planted specific visual cues in exactly this way for months before the drop. The third piece of surface evidence is the Terrence Crawford connection, and this is where the boxing theme stops being random. On Euphoria, one of the biggest diss tracks of the 2024 run, Kendrick literally rapped the line, "He's Terrence Thornton, I'm Terrence Crawford, yeah, I'm whooping feet." That is a direct comparison to an undefeated pound-for-pound world champion boxer. That is not a throwaway bar. That is a self-identification. So when the same artist who compared himself to Terrence Crawford on Wax shows up at the Grammys wrapped like a fighter, and his creative director zooms in on it, and a producer he's featured on drops a track called How to Pray 1 week later, that is not 3 separate events. That is one event happening in 3 places. And the fourth piece of surface evidence is the reaction itself, which is honestly the loudest confirmation of all. Because when you look at the comment sections under every one of these posts, the volume of Drake fans showing up to insist that nobody cares, that Kendrick is irrelevant, that this is desperation for attention, that noise is not the noise of a fan base that is confident. That is the noise of a fan base that has been quietly bracing for months and just watched the first crack in the wall appear. Real irrelevance does not generate this many replies. And these are the same people, remember, who spent the whole last 2 years telling us that Kendrick never gets criticized. Meanwhile, they are in every single comment section criticizing him. The math is not mathing, and I think we just need to set the record straight on what is actually happening in these comment sections right now. And oh, do I have more for you, because the surface layer is honestly the least interesting part of this. What is coming up next is where the real story lives. The insider reactions, the deleted posts, the podcast clips, the media plants designed to reshape the conversation before Kendrick even has a chance to speak for himself. And I promise you, the boxing-themed album rumor is nothing compared to the interview ducking narrative that got quietly seeded into the culture this same week, because that one is not a fan rumor. That one has fingerprints on it. Somebody wrote that talking point. Somebody put it in a specific mouth on a specific platform. And the stands that keep saying nobody talks about Drake anymore are about to find out exactly who is talking about Drake, exactly who is not, and exactly why the timing of these two narratives dropping in the same week is not a coincidence. Stay with me. Now, let me get into the cultural layer, because this is where the story stops being about fan tweets and starts being about the people who actually operate inside the industry. Piece 1. The DJ Dahi album confirmation. This is not a small feature. Dahi is the producer behind Money Trees, one of the most iconic beats in Kendrick's entire catalog. His new album, Black Boy Alternative, is stacked, according to Stereo Gum, with Vince Staples, Channel Tress, Moses Sumney, Mez, Child Gambino, Amber Mark, and Kendrick Lamar. And Kendrick's feature is not a 2-bar cameo. It is track 3, How to Pray, credited to Kendrick Lamar and Amber Mark together. When a rapper of Kendrick's stature agrees to appear on a producer album at that placement, that is a signal that the artist is fully out of hibernation and actively participating in the ecosystem again. Piece 2, the Company Man clip. This is the piece of cultural evidence that ties the entire week together. The Company Man is one of the more thoughtful hip-hop commentators in the game, and in a recent New Old Heads episode discussion about whether Kendrick stands alone in the Big Three conversation, a specific segment gets pulled and clipped and pushed across social media with a new framing. Is Kendrick Lamar ducking interviews with the culture he represents? Now here's the thing, if you actually watch the full conversation, that is a nuanced debate between grown men about the responsibility of a superstar. But the way that clip gets cut up and redistributed, it becomes a weapon. It becomes ammunition. It becomes something that Drake fans can post under every Kendrick video for the next 6 months. And that is the exact moment where organic cultural discussion gets hijacked and turned into a talking point. Piece 3, the T.I. cosign. In a new interview, T.I., a rapper who has been in this game for over 2 decades and who has no reason to lie for anybody, gives Kendrick Lamar his flowers directly. He talks about Kendrick's impact, he talks about the beef, and in the same conversation, he acknowledges that Cole ducked battling Kendrick, that other rappers ducked callouts, and that Kendrick was clearly the one who inspired the whole moment. That is a veteran, respected voice from the South, not from Kendrick's camp, publicly aligning with the narrative that Kendrick is the one who moved the culture. Piece 4, the deleted post pattern and the concert footage denial cycle. All year long, there has been a specific pattern where Drake-aligned accounts post claims that Grand National Tour shows were not sold out, that venues were empty, that Kendrick had to have SZA carry him. And then, within hours, real fans post real footage from those exact shows. Mexico City with over 70,000 people, Seattle with 60,941 tickets sold at Lumen Field, city after city, packed to capacity, singing every word bar for bar. Polestar reported the Grand National Tour landed at number 4 for the entire year across all genres, with $358.7 million gross on 39 dates. Now, the counter-argument some people will raise here, and I want to be fair and address it directly, is that the co-headliner setup with SZA inflated the numbers, and that is a fair thing to interrogate. But then you look at the individual dates SZA was not on, the international legs, certain domestic stops, and the numbers still land at record levels. Seattle alone, one show, $15.373 million. You cannot pin that on a co-headliner. So the argument dies the moment you check the box scores. And when you stack all 4 of these cultural pieces together, the Dahi feature confirming Kendrick is active, the Company Man clip being weaponized, the T.I. interview publicly reframing the beef, and the concert denial narrative getting shattered week after week by real footage, you start to see that we are not watching a hip-hop conversation. We are watching a media containment operation, and it is failing. And the reason it is failing is about to be the entire second half of this video. Now here is where I need you to lock in with me, because we are shifting gears completely. Everything I just walked you through, the tweets, the hand wrap, the Dahi feature, the Company Man clip, the T.I. interview, those are all downstream. Those are the symptoms. What I want to talk about is the disease. And the disease is a specific dynamic that has been running underneath hip-hop for the last 24 months that almost nobody is naming out loud. And it explains everything about why this specific week is happening this specific way. Angle 1, the streaming economy dynamic.
Hip-hop as a genre lost market share for the first time in a generation between 2022 and 2024. Multiple industry reports tracked hip-hop's dominant streaming position eroding, with the genre dropping meaningful percentage points of share to Latin music, to pop, to country. That is not opinion, that is data. And then, in the spring of 2024, one artist re-entered the arena and single-handedly reversed the trend. Not Like Us went diamond in record time. Squabble Up, TV Off, and the rest of GNX charted at levels the genre had not seen in years. The Super Bowl halftime performance became one of the most watched in history, and the genre, for the first time in a long time, was culturally central again. So when we talk about who owes what to whom, understand that the industry itself owes a specific artist for a specific rescue. That's angle one. Angle two, the label incentive structure. Drake is signed to Republic Records under Universal Music Group, and his catalog and touring apparatus generate significant revenue for that structure. Kendrick Lamar is now operating outside of the traditional TDE arrangement, primarily through PG Lang, his own creative company with Dave Free. Those are two fundamentally different business positions. One artist is a legacy asset inside a major label machine that has every financial incentive to keep him positioned as the top of the genre, regardless of the cultural verdict. The other artist owns the creative direction of his own output through his own company. When Kendrick drops a
project, PGL Lang controls the rollout, the visuals, the timing, the merch, the story. When Drake drops a project, a much bigger apparatus with much bigger quarterly obligations is involved. So when you see 3 albums drop in one weekend and get pushed hard across every platform, understand there is a business reason for that pace that has very little to do with artistic decision-making. It is a market flooding strategy. It is designed to eat up attention share. And when you see coordinated media narratives suddenly emerge that reframe the winning artist as absent, missing, ducking the culture, you should at minimum ask yourself who benefits from that reframing. Because the answer is not the culture. The answer is the balance sheet. Angle 3, the media influence pipeline. The specific pattern of how a ducking interviews narrative gets seeded is worth understanding in detail. A commentator makes a nuanced point in a long-form discussion. That point gets clipped out of context. The clip gets pushed across multiple platforms simultaneously, often boosted by accounts that have historically posted pro-Drake or anti-Kendrick content. Within 72 hours, the clip is being cited by fans as if it is an established truth. Within a week, mainstream aggregation accounts are running headlines with the framing baked in. Within a month, it is a talking point that gets brought up in every future conversation about the artist. That is not organic cultural discourse. That is narrative laundering, and hip-hop media has been vulnerable to it for years because the
incentive structures reward engagement over accuracy. Now hear me on this. I am not saying every person who repeats these talking points is in on anything. Most people are just repeating what they heard. That is how these operations work. They rely on good faith fans amplifying bad faith framing. But the framing itself, he is ducking the culture. He does not talk to us. He only pops out for the white platforms. That framing has fingerprints. It is designed to accomplish a specific goal, which is to sever the emotional connection between Kendrick Lamar and the community that has consistently placed him at the top of the genre. And the reason that goal is worth pursuing from a certain business perspective is that if you can convince the base that their guy is not their guy anymore, you create room in the market for the guy your label is trying to protect. That is what we are actually watching this week. Not a rumor, not a debate, a soft campaign to reshape the emotional terms of the next Kendrick Lamar rollout before it even begins. And it is not working. And that is the part I want you to really understand, because a campaign that was working would not need to be this loud.
So let me get to what I think is the real story here, and I want to walk into this one slowly, because it matters. The truth bomb of this entire situation, the thing that connects the hand wrap and the Dahi feature and the interview clip and the tour numbers and the Iceman references and the fan meltdowns all into one single picture is this. Kendrick Lamar, allegedly, based on the pattern of visual signaling, insider reporting, and confirmed collaborative activity, is not just preparing another album. He is preparing to reset the entire competitive landscape of hip-hop for the second time in 3 years. And the reason the panic is happening right now, months before anything has even been officially announced, is that the people who spent the last 24 months trying to rehabilitate a specific narrative understand that they have a very small window to lock in the story before the next Kendrick project makes their narrative permanently unsalvageable. Think about the timeline. Drake dropped 3 albums this year: Iceman, Habibti, and Maid of Honor. Billboard broke down the Kendrick references across those projects. Multiple songs on Iceman contain what outlets have described as direct or
indirect shots at the man who won the beef in 2024. That is a lot of energy, and I mean a lot of energy, spent on a person you are supposedly done with. Now imagine that energy landing in the middle of a Kendrick Lamar rollout with a boxing-themed concept album, a Terrence Crawford visual pipeline, a PGALN-directed video suite, and a tour that would inevitably break the record he just set for the second time. That is not a competitive scenario. That is an extinction event for the counter-narrative. And that is why, allegedly, we are seeing the specific media plays we are seeing this week. The "he is ducking interviews" narrative is not about interviews, it is about pre-diminishing the impact of the next rollout by seeding a story that this artist is disconnected from the culture, so that when he drops, a portion of the audience is already primed to receive it through a skeptical lens. The concert denial narrative is not about concerts, it is about pre-diminishing the tour numbers, so that when the next tour breaks records again, there is already a template in place to explain it away. The boxing rumor pushback is not about the rumor, it is about pre-diminishing the concept itself, so that if the concept turns out to be real, the audience is already exhausted with the topic before the first single drops. This is not paranoia, this is pattern recognition. And the reason I am confident this pattern is real is that the same playbook was run in 2024, during the beef itself, when for weeks people were pushed the narrative that Kendrick was rapping too complicated, too preachy, too moralistic. And then Not Like Us dropped, and none of that mattered anymore, because the record was undeniable. The playbook does not stop the artist. The playbook just tries to soften the landing for the losing side. And that is exactly what we are watching in real time this week. Now, to be clear, and I want to be careful with my language here, the internal business coordination I am describing is inferred from public patterns and public reporting. I am not claiming to have seen a memo. But when you line up the timing of the media plays, the specific choice of talking points, the platforms they appear on, and the accounts amplifying them, the pattern reads exactly like a campaign that has been run many times before in this industry, on other artists, in other genres. This is the machinery, and once you see the machinery, you cannot unsee it.
So where does that leave us? It leaves us exactly where the evidence has been pointing the whole time. Kendrick Lamar is not ducking anybody, he is not hiding, he is not irrelevant, he is not falling off, he is doing what he has always done, which is quietly building at a level of intention and discipline that this genre almost never sees, and letting the work speak louder than the noise around it. This is a guy who took the biggest cultural moment of the last decade in hip-hop, converted it into the highest-grossing rap tour of all time, walked away without gloating, went into the studio, showed up at the Grammys with a specific visual signal, dropped a confirmed feature on a respected producer album, and let the anticipation build itself. That is not the behavior of somebody who is worried about his position. That is the behavior of somebody whose position is so secure he does not have to defend it out loud. And on the other side, you have 3 albums in one weekend, ongoing lyrical references to the person who allegedly is not relevant, a fan base that cannot get through a news cycle without melting down, and a media apparatus working overtime to reshape a story that reality keeps refusing to cooperate with. Those 2 positions are not equal. And the beautiful thing, honestly, is that you do not have to take my word for any of this. The evidence is public. The Polestar numbers are public. The Billboard box score is public. The Iceman lyric references are public. The Dahi track list is public. The Grammys hand rap footage is public. The T.I. interview is public. All of it is sitting right there. All I am doing in this video is connecting the dots that most people do not connect because they are watching one dot at a time. And when you connect them, the picture is not ambiguous. The guy who does every job to 100% is still, quietly, doing every job to 100%. And the guy who cannot stop talking about him is still, loudly, telling on himself with every reference. So if you came into this video wondering whether Kendrick is really ducking anything, whether the boxing theme is real, whether the album is coming, the honest answer is that we do not have a confirmed release date, and we should be honest about that. But everything else, every other piece of the puzzle is telling you the same thing. He is not gone, he is not slipping, he is not scared, he is building. And when he drops, and I do believe he will drop within the next 12 months based on the signaling pattern, it is going to reset the entire conversation again. That is the pattern. That is the resolution. And the person still winning without even being outside is still winning without even being outside. And this is only the start. I want to be very direct with you about what is coming next in this story, because there are at least 2 specific developments I am tracking closely that I think are going to break in the next few weeks. And if you are subscribed to this channel, you are going to hear about both of them in real time. Development 1 is the How to Pray release on August 28th. That is a hard date. That is confirmed. When that record drops, the way Kendrick performs on that track, the mixing, the mood, the thematic content, all of it is going to give us the first actual audio-level clue about the direction of whatever project comes next, and I am going to break it down bar by bar the second it hits. Development 2 is the visual pipeline. Watch Dave Free's Instagram closely over the next 60 days. Watch what PGLang posts. Watch the merch drops, the pop-ups, the community events. Every one of those touch points is a piece of the rollout, and every one of them is going to add a little more shape to the picture that is currently forming. There is also a third thing I am watching, which is how Drake's team responds to the How to Pray moment, because if the pattern holds, we should expect either another surprise drop or another wave of coordinated media plays timed to compete for attention share. If that happens, I will be all over it. So if you want to be locked in when any of this breaks, and if you appreciate the kind of breakdown you just got in this video, hit that subscribe button right now, hit the notification bell, and stay with me, because this next chapter of hip-hop is going to move fast, and it is going to move loud, and you do not want to be catching up. Comment down below what you think the boxing theme actually means, whether you think How to Pray is a one-off or a warm-up, and which of the 3 angles I broke down hit hardest for you. If you have made it to this point in the video, honestly, thank you. You are the reason this channel exists, and I do not take that for granted. Before you close out, though, do yourself a favor and click the video on your screen right now, because I just dropped a full breakdown on exactly why Iceman, Habibti, and Maid of Honor dropped together this year is not the flex it was sold as. The numbers behind that weekend are wilder than anybody told you, and there is one specific chart position that basically nobody in the mainstream press wanted to talk about. And once you see it, the whole story of this year in hip-hop clicks into place. Click it, watch it. I'll see you in the next one.